I buried my husband 7 months ago. I stood beside a polished oak casket in a quiet cemetery outside Cleveland, listening to a pastor talk about love, loyalty, and a life well lived. People kept squeezing my hands, telling me how strong I was and how lucky I'd been to spend 40 years with a good man. Yesterday, I saw him buying frozen pizza in a grocery store. For months after the funeral, my life had become painfully simple. Wake up, sit in the quiet house, try to remember to eat. People think grief looks dramatic, like crying all the time. It doesn't. Mostly it's silence. Long stretches where the world keeps moving and you're just standing still inside it. That afternoon, I forced myself to go to the store because the refrigerator was empty. I remember standing in the pasta aisle staring at jars of sauce like they were written in another language, my mind drifting back to the empty side of the bed at home. Then I heard it, a cough. Not loud, just that familiar, slightly irritated cough someone makes when they're reading a price tag they don't like. My hand froze halfway toward a jar, because I knew that sound. 40 years of marriage does that to you. You memorize tiny things without realizing it. The way someone clears their throat, the rhythm of their footsteps, the quiet sigh when they think no one is listening. And that cough belonged to my husband. My heart started hammering before my brain even caught up. Slowly, almost afraid to move, I turned. 3 aisles down, a man stood comparing cereal boxes. Same broad shoulders, same stubborn silver hair that never stayed combed, same slight lean to the right from the time he slipped off a ladder years ago. It was him. The man whose name was carved into a headstone. My husband. My fingers went numb and the jar slipped from my hand. It shattered across the tile, red sauce splattering everywhere. People gasped behind me, but I barely heard them. My entire world had narrowed to the man standing 20 feet away. "Richard," I whispered, then louder. "Richard." He turned. For one hopeful second, I expected the same smile he'd always given me across a room, the look that said we were in life together. Instead, he looked confused. "I'm sorry," he said carefully. "It's me," I said, walking closer, my heart pounding. "It's Claire, your wife." He stepped back. "My name is Mark," he said slowly. "Mark Dalton. I think you've mistaken me for someone else." Mistaken. 40 years. Mistaken. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo from last summer, his birthday. We were sitting on the back deck, laughing. "You burned the burgers that day," I said, "and blamed the grill." He looked at the phone. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Then it vanished. "I'm very sorry," he said gently. "You must be going through something difficult." He even placed a hand on my shoulder, like he was comforting a stranger. But it was his hand. Same calluses, same warmth. "Show me your hand," I said suddenly. He frowned but lifted it. There it was. The crooked pinky finger he'd broken as a teenager fixing his father's roof. It was him. "I need to go," he said quickly. And just like that, he walked away. People stared while a store employee cleaned the broken glass at my feet. Someone whispered, "Poor lady." But they were wrong. I wasn't pitiful. I was terrified. Because one thought kept repeating in my head. If my husband was alive, then who had I buried? And at the time, I didn't realize something worse. Someone else already knew the answer. But before I continue, if you enjoy real-life karma stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Anyway, I should have gone home. Instead, I followed him. I watched from the end of the checkout lane as he paid for his groceries, cash. Which was strange, because Richard always used a card. Outside, he loaded the bags into an old blue sedan with faded paint, not his car. But the way he packed the groceries was unmistakable. Heavy items first. Bread on top, eggs last. Little habits you can't fake. When he drove away, I followed, 3 car lengths back, heart racing. Eventually, he turned onto a quiet street, lined with small houses and maple trees. He parked in front of a pale yellow house with a white fence. Then the front door opened. A woman stepped out, mid-50s, dark hair tied back, the kind of woman who looked like she belonged there. She smiled when she saw him, not politely. Familiar. She walked down the path and kissed his cheek. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Then 2 kids ran out of the house. A boy and a girl, maybe 8 or 9. They ran straight toward him. "Grandpa!" the girl shouted. "Grandpa!" He laughed. The same warm laugh I'd heard in our kitchen for 40 years. He crouched down while the kids jumped into his arms. The woman rested a hand on his back and the 4 of them walked inside together. The door closed. I sat frozen halfway down the street while tears slid down my face. 40 years of marriage, 7 months of mourning, and my husband was alive, living in another house, with another family. My hands shook as I took photos. The house, the car, the mailbox, with the address. Because deep down I knew this wasn't just betrayal, it was something planned. Later that night, sitting alone in my quiet kitchen, one question kept echoing in my mind. If my husband had faked his death, who helped him do it? At 3:30 inches the morning, I called my son Ethan. When I told him what I'd seen, the silence on the phone lasted just a little too long. That's when I knew something was terribly wrong. Because the next morning, when Ethan saw the man himself, he didn't say it was impossible. He started crying. "Mom, I'm so sorry." Those words hung in the car like a storm cloud. My son had always been calm and logical, but now his hands shook on the steering wheel. And suddenly I realized something that made my stomach drop. He wasn't shocked, he was guilty. "Sorry for what?" I asked quietly. He kept staring at the pale yellow house across the street. "Ethan," I said, "look at me." He turned, eyes red. "Dad didn't die in that accident," he whispered. Inside me, everything went strangely calm. "Tell me the truth." He dragged a hand across his face. "He had another family," Ethan said, "for more than 20 years. 20 years. Half our marriage. That woman's name is Melissa," he said. "Dad met her during one of his supply trips. It was supposed to be a mistake, but it never ended." "And you knew?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "About 3 years ago, I found out while helping with business paperwork. 2 mortgages, 2 sets of bills, 2 lives. And you said nothing. He begged me not to tell you, said it would destroy you." The irony almost made me laugh. "Then the business started failing," Ethan continued. "Dad said if he divorced you, you'd get half of everything." My hands tightened. "So he decided it would be easier if you thought he was dead." "Explain," I said. "There was a homeless man who was terminally ill," Ethan said quietly. "Dad paid him and his relative. They staged a car crash. The man had Dad's ID. The funeral flashed through my mind. The flowers, the condolences, the closed casket. You let me bury a stranger," I said. "I didn't know how to stop it," Ethan whispered. "Dad moved most of the money into new accounts before the accident. Afterward, the rest came to me legally. I thought I could take care of you. An allowance." After 40 years of marriage, I leaned back and stared out the windshield. "You both stole my life," I said softly. Ethan broke down. "I'm sorry, Mom." After a long silence, I finally said the only thing left. "Take me home." For 3 days I didn't call him back. I just sat in my living room replaying everything. Fake death, hidden accounts, my own son helping cover it up. At first I cried. Then something inside me hardened. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a crime. On the 4th morning I hired a private investigator named Harold Simmons. I gave him the facts, the house, the car, the name my husband was using. A week later, he returned with proof. Fake identity records. Nearly $2 million moved before the staged crash. Utility bills showing 2 homes for 20 years. And phone records showing dozens of calls between him and Ethan after his death while I was grieving. That's when everything inside me settled. They thought I'd stay quiet. They were wrong. A criminal attorney reviewed the file and said one thing. This is fraud and identity theft, but we need a confession. Luckily, I knew where to get one. I called Ethan and asked him to meet for lunch. What he didn't know was that my purse held a recorder. During that conversation, he explained everything again, how the money moved, how the documents were signed. He thought he was comforting his mother. Instead, he sealed the case. Charges were filed that same afternoon. 2 days later, Ethan was arrested. That evening, I drove back to the yellow house. This time, I didn't wait in the car. I walked straight to the door. The woman answered. Yes? I'm here to see Mark. She pointed toward the backyard. He was gardening near the fence. When he turned and saw me, the color drained from his face. Claire, he whispered. I handed him an envelope. Legal documents. His hands trembled as he read the first page. Behind him, the woman stepped onto the porch. Mark? What's going on? I looked at her. My name is Claire Whitmore, I said, and I've been married to that man for 42 years. Silence swallowed the yard. You told me your wife died, she said slowly. Then police sirens echoed down the street. Claire, please, he said desperately. We can talk about this. No, I replied quietly. We should have talked before you buried a stranger under your name. Police cars pulled up outside. As officers placed handcuffs on him, he looked at me with real fear for the first time. But it didn't matter anymore, because the truth had finally stepped into the light. Months later, the court returned most of the stolen money. Ethan accepted a plea deal and went to prison. I still love you, I told him once. But love doesn't erase consequences. As for my husband, the man who faked his death to escape everything, he died in custody before the trial began. A heart attack. Strange how life works. The man who tried to disappear from the world still ended up facing it. Because karma doesn't always arrive quickly, but when it finally does, it takes everything back.